Perfect. So welcome to this quarter's Azure quarterly updates. Welcome to everybody that's joined. Welcome to everybody that's watching on demand. Just as a bit of a preamble to anything going on today, if you are watching this in different territories, this is obviously recorded in the UK. So any of the offers, resources, and Microsoft specific tools that are available here, please do double check with your kind of contacts at Inti or ScanSource if they are available or have different formats in different territories like the US, because there are different setups. Good morning, Rob. Thanks for joining. Just as a heads up, Rob, we are recording this session today, so if you have any issues with that, please do let us know promptly. But we shall crack on from here. So on the call today, we've got myself. My name's Max. I am the lead Azure consultant here at Inti. We've also got my colleague Christina, who's our better business manager for Microsoft here at Inti. Our head of practice and enablement, James Wilson. My colleague Adam Jones, who is one of the Azure consultants in the Azure practice here at Inti, and also our guest for today, Andy Porter from Microsoft. So I've said it before, I'll say it again, any questions, please feel free to jump in. We don't want this to be just a presentation, so if you do have anything you wanted to jump in on, any thoughts, queries, anything like that, please feel free to jump in at any time. If you're watching this on demand and have questions, obviously, please feel free to get in touch with myself, your account manager, or your relevant contacts at Inti. So what are we going to cover today? So agenda, first up, solution designation, something that is hot on topic, has been for over a year now and is becoming more of a hot topic as time goes on. Cost management updates within Azure, Inti resources and Azure Ascend updates, Microsoft resources and offers, Microsoft Inspire, and we're going to top this off with a short discussion at the end of it with ourselves and Andy, and hopefully you guys as well, looking at AI. If you haven't seen any news about AI, probably haven't been on the internet recently, so we're going to cover off what AI is looking like in Azure at the moment and where it's going. So first off, solution designations. Obviously, there was a big change last year with Microsoft membership. Obviously, the silver and gold membership was no longer an option as a kind of a badge from October last year. There was, however, a legacy renewals available, so people are still carrying on with their legacy benefits from their old competency setup. However, from this October, that will no longer be available. So if you have a renewal date after October this year, you will no longer be able to renew on the legacy gold, silver style competencies. What this means for our partners and all partners across the Microsoft environment is that you need to start looking at your solution designations if you haven't already. First and foremost, there's a lot of information around this. It's complex to go through it all in one fell swoop. The main point of this here is to say, if you're interested in having your rebates, incentives, benefits, internal use right licenses, etc., this is where you need to be looking now rather than the old competencies. There's a number of different options available. You've got all of these across here. You've got business applications, modern work, solutions partner for security, and then solutions partner for you've got infrastructure, digital and app innovation, and data and AI. Sorry, that's smaller than I could read there, in Azure. So there's a number of ones to look at. This being an Azure call, obviously we're going to be focusing in on the relevant one for that. So if you are looking at gaining rebates and incentives on Azure consumption, you need to have the infrastructure solutions partner designation. Again, it's a lot of things to go at. You can see here kind of a breakdown of the key performance areas you're looking at to gain the relevant points needed to qualify for this. You're looking at net customer adds, intermediate and advanced certifications, usage growth and deployments. If you are not aware of how to work towards this, if you're working towards it and you want some support on plotting out a path for how to get there, whether that's around any of those key areas, whether it's L&D or performance or customer success, please do get in contact with myself or one of the team here at Inti, and we can jump on a call with you to support in putting that plan in place. Obviously, with the usage growth, etc., we can work with you on a variety of different methods to help grow your customer base and improve your current customers in terms of usage growth, etc. From a skilling perspective, we can help you set out learning and development paths, and also we have third parties. We work with one specifically called Illuminate, who I cannot speak highly enough of because they've just got me through my AZ 104, which is no mean feat to get me to pass an exam. So I can highly recommend them, but there's lots of options here, and we want to make sure that our partners are ready and raring to go with their solution designations come October or their renewal date. So does anybody have any questions around solution designations right now? Any thoughts or anything like that? I'll take that as a no. But again, any questions, please do feel free to jump on the phone and give us a call anytime. I would stress as well, all slides are hyperlinked, so we'll have further information available. We'll send these slides out to everybody after the call as well. So moving on, bit of a mild dip into the AI world before our discussion at the end of this call, but one thing which is coming up very soon, is currently in private preview, is AI functionality coming to cost management in Azure. What this means is cost management, which is probably where I spend a lot of my life, and one of my favorite tools in Azure, being a commercial side of things here. It's being upgraded. It's getting the power of AI, and it's going to become much more functional in terms of how you can look at your spend, your forecasting, your consumption within Azure, and how you can really put this to the benefit of your customers. It's going to improve with visibility, accountability, and optimization in the 4 key areas you can see there. So analysis, it's going to be able to provide prompts in natural language, such as summarize my invoice, why is my cost higher this month, and get instant responses on that for questions that partners are often, they're looking at the numbers, they're not quite sure what they mean, they're not quite sure how to drill into those details on cost management. This is going to be able to answer those questions very simply for you using plain English. They can summarize it, organize it, or drill into the details, or whatever you ask it to do. Insights wise, you can use the AI assistant, which is coming to cost management, to give quite meaningful and deep insights into identifying increases in charges, suggesting ways to optimize costs, and not up alerts. They'll enable you to focus on the aspects that really matter, enable you to manage, grow, optimize your cloud investments more effectively, and not be left wondering, could I have done that? You just have to ask. Optimization, again, how do I reduce my costs? How do I optimize my spending? Where should I be looking to bring these costs down to a more predictable and lower level? Again, very simple English requests are needed on there. And the final one, simulation. So simulation is going to be a really useful tool in this, because it's something that you have to use the Azure calculator for at the moment, but you could literally go in there and say, can you forecast my bill if my storage costs double in the next 2 to 3 months? What happens to my charges if my reservation utilization decreases by 10%? And you can really get that valuable insight as to what impact different changes can have on your Azure spend within the new AI cost management. So really exciting bit of kit coming through here. Again, it's been private preview at the moment. I haven't had a chance to play with it myself, but as soon as that private turns to public, I will be straight on there playing with it and bringing you more updates as soon as we can. But yeah, definitely one to look out for there. Inti resources. We want to direct you guys a bit to our resources page on our website. So blogs and webinars we create to help spread the good word. These are across, obviously, Azure, modern work, and other vendor areas as well, but obviously we like to focus on the Azure side of things here. 3 key ones we wanted to highlight recently. Again, these are all hyperlinked on the slides, which we'll be sending out afterwards. We've got Defender for Cloud webinar, Defender for Cloud blog, and also a full campaign, but specifically an on-demand webinar link there for the migrating Windows and SQL Server to Azure. Really useful bits of information. Hopefully it'll give you guys a bit of more in-depth knowledge on what we should be looking at here and how to look at it from a partner perspective. But again, if you're looking for more information on these or wanted to delve into these areas, the Azure practice is always on hand to jump on any calls. New update from ourselves as well is Azure Ascend. Hopefully everybody on the call here is registered with Azure Ascend. It's our 5-stage training platform we've developed for partners. A big ask we had after launching it last year was to have more on-demand sessions put in so partners can go more at their own pace. This is a work in progress still, but the red highlighted steps there within those stages 1, 2, and 3, the ones highlighted in red, are now available on demand. So should hopefully grease the wheels in terms of people moving through the program slightly. The next ones to come through will be go-to-market enablement, technical readiness part 2, and some other ones that we should be able to automate in there as well. So please do, if you haven't already registered for Azure Ascend, please do register. If you are already in Azure Ascend but not utilizing it, please do go in, have a look at the content in there and do engage with it. We've seen a lot of success coming through. We've got a case study coming out soon, which will be circulated with our partners to show the value of Ascend and how it can really help partners push their business forward with Azure and get you kind of the ball rolling really on getting your customers migrating over. Onto Microsoft resources. So big one recently, Microsoft have launched their partner marketing hub in the last quarter. This is the new home for all things kind of go-to-market really. You've got marketing guides, resources, external support. This is a very small snapshot here of the web page. But essentially, this will be your new home for looking for marketing resources, advice, how-to guides, external support. This is the new home. If you would like a run through on this, please do let us know. We're here to support on kind of enablement and making sure you guys have got the right access and the right knowledge to utilize all these tools and resources that Microsoft are excellent at creating. Not always as good at telling people about, but excellent at creating. So please do let us know if you need any guidance on how to utilize this to the best option. They've also started up a series of quarterly marketing community calls as well. We've seen within our partner base, for as long as we've been working with them, that there is often a shortfall in confidence and knowledge in the marketing side of things. It is a dark art, and not all partners have a marketing department. So Microsoft are there into you here as well, with our own kind of specialist marketing team to support on that knowledge base. So please do register for those marketing community calls. They've run one already. It was really insightful, very useful, and gave some really good kind of hints and tips across how we can be best going to market with our solutions in Azure. Other Microsoft offers, these are not necessarily new to the market, but ones I like to highlight. Solution assessments and evaluations. If you're not looking at these already, we seriously suggest you are. These are basically free assessment tools paid for by Microsoft for Azure deployments. Well, not just Azure deployments, as modern work and other areas as well. Obviously, we're focusing on Azure as usual, but the main ones we look at would be data and infrastructure migrations and Azure Virtual Desktop. This is paid for by Microsoft, so the wonderful price of $0, and essentially is an automated tool which does all the data capture and manipulation and analysis to bring back very granular but also customer-facing reports to give you the requirements and setup you would need to migrate that customer to Azure. This significantly increases opportunities to close conversion rate. We're looking around a kind of mid 80% mark from people going on to a solution assessment or a solution evaluation, and then converting that to actually being a deployment for the partner winning that business. That is quite a lot higher than an average Azure opportunity, so we can really see the benefit in these. It also takes a lot of the legwork out of the actual process for you as well, which is never a bad thing. If you want more information on this, please do not hesitate to get in touch, because we are really trying to make sure that partners are utilizing these. Our most successful partners have this as standard in their sales process, and it reaps massive rewards for them. So please don't miss out on a very, very well priced offer from Microsoft. Another main offer we see going well at the moment with Microsoft is the Azure Credit Offer, ACO for short, because we all have an acronym. Basically, this offers net new deployments with Azure a $1,200 credit for Azure deployments estimated at $12,000 or more per annum. There is now a not-for-profit opportunity available as well for charities, which is $1,000 for a $10,000 per annum kind of estimated revenue as well. So slightly lower threshold for the not-for-profit sector. This is done by Microsoft directly. It can be applied for via the Azure practice here at Inti. We'll support in that application process, and the credit is applied directly onto the Azure subscription. So no need for claiming back credits or anything like that. It is just a credit put on a subscription, and once you've spent it, you go back onto the normal pay-as-you-go pricing. This is a really good opportunity to provide some solid kind of proof of concept and deployment funding for your customers. For any new deployments, whether it's a brand new migration to AVD, whether it's moving some kind of on-premise infrastructure into Azure. If it meets those thresholds, you'd be silly not to say yes to some credit, let's be honest. So if you've got opportunities that are looking like it'd be around this threshold, then please do let us know. We can help with that application process. Microsoft Inspire, if you haven't heard about it, it's a rather large event that runs every year. But this is coming up July 18th and 19th next month, basically, so a few weeks away now. This is all things new in Microsoft. News tends to die down a bit this time of year because they're holding it back from us, so they can announce everything beautiful at Inspire. Expect a lot of AI, expect a lot of Copilot, but expect a lot of good stuff that we haven't really thought of yet as well. We watch this religiously every year, and it's all available on demand. So register. This entire page is a hyperlink. So please do log on, register, choose the sessions you want to attend live. There'll be a lot on demand as well. Inti will be obviously doing roundups and sending out any relevant information we find as the event progresses, but yeah, well worth a look and well worth registering for any relevant sessions that fit where you're looking at as a partner or want to look at as a partner. Andy, if you do speak to anybody very high up, if you can just hint that we still want it back live in Vegas, if you can, but we'll see what we can do. We'll keep asking every year, but
yeah, don't worry, we're definitely asking as well. And I guess just to add on to what you're saying there as well, the schedule builder has gone live for Inspire today. So if you log on to your registration now, you'll be able to actually add some into your backpack and get some sessions locked in.
Perfect. That was well timed.
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
I guess it's more aimed at Microsoft. Are you planning on doing another Ignite in the UK? I live 5 minutes from the Excel, hence why I'm asking.
We hope so. Similar to Inspire, it's still very much in a sort of testing phase. We're all advocates from the UK subsidiary that we want to get it back in person. We want to be back at the Excel. Keep your sort of ear to the ground, really. Hopefully next year we're in a much stronger position to sort of use the data that we've gathered over the last 2 years and sort of say whether it's a good viable option or if it is still best for everyone to do it remotely and it be as accessible as possible. I'm a massive advocate for doing it in person, but remote's been really successful as well, so I cannot answer that unfortunately conclusively.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, Andy, if you speak to Satya later, obviously you can just
I'll drop a quick message and let you know.
Good man. I think the last Ignite I went to was about 6 years ago, and I've only just got over the hangover, so ready for the next one now. And that's really what we wanted to present to you today. But one of the things we wanted to do today was talk about AI. So Copilot is, you can't turn your head without seeing an advert, an infographic, a short webinar on kind of Copilot and what's going on with it, to the point where people are thinking, can we just bring it out now, please? But AI in Azure is something we want to talk about because it's big. It's where we're going now, and it's something that's going to be very much part of our lives in the very, very near future. And a lot of the people I'm speaking to at the moment see it as very much this is enterprise level stuff. It doesn't concern us. We're in the SMB market. Why is this relevant to us? So we wanted to address that really. And Andy very kindly agreed to join us today to have a discussion with us really about, AI in Azure, where is it now and where is it going and why should we be paying attention really? So again, this is going to be very much a discussion. So please do jump in, ask questions, and kind of get stuck into this. But I was going to hand over more probably to James and Andy at this point to run this part of the session. So I shall do that now.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and just to reiterate Max's point, we wanted this to start being a discussion, because we think it's very easy to just dismiss AI currently because there is so much conversation about it that it's like, okay, well, I'm actually a little bit sick of this conversation. And actually it's quite useful to just distill some of those points around wherever you are on your journey, you can still engage with some of the tools and services that are out there. I think the piece that I wanted to sort of bring to this conversation and discuss a little bit as well is just the importance of acting quite quickly with AI, just because it's such a fast moving technology and it creates such an advantage for the businesses that utilize those tools, inherently then a disadvantage for the businesses that choose to wait on those tools. So, we're not talking about being a couple of weeks ahead of the curve when it comes to sort of offering SharePoint migrations and things like that. The businesses that start using AI quickly will have an enormous advantage over businesses that don't. So I think there's almost a duty of care for us to you and for you to your customers to start thinking about, what are the potential resources available to you to start leveraging the benefits of AI as quickly and, in some respects as safely as possible as well. But also, what are the concerns potentially that we should be aware of with regards to what we can expect our competitors to be doing, or potentially, I use the term bad actors as well. That will be on people's minds as well. So I think I'll prompt this conversation, Andy, by asking you a question, and then I'm hoping that participants on the call would like to chime in and either drop a question into chat or jump off mute and join in as well. But I think the question for me is, if you had a list of a couple of sort of key points, where do you think the easiest point of entry to start exploring artificial intelligence in Azure is for our partner community? Where would you be beginning this conversation yourself?
Yeah, I guess it's a really good question. I think the way to probably frame the best answer is to look at it in two separate ways. One, in how do I understand what's useful, for my business? What processes am I completing? What things are my clients expecting from me that are really, monotonous, boring things that, you do well once and, it just becomes that robotic task of do it again and again and again. I'd be identifying those tasks that are the repeatable actions and seeing if that's something that we can, automate through things like Copilot, or find a way that allows you to be more effective in that and be more productive with that. To one of the points you mentioned at the start was, the value almost to the size of the partners that you're working with. If anything, I'm going to see the most value from smaller partners. If you've not got a marketing team, imagine having a PA that can almost bounce back those ideas to you, that doesn't have an annual salary to that degree, doesn't need an actual university degree, doesn't need all that experience, because you're contextualizing your needs and it will respond to you with market research. It's coming back to you with reference sources, that referenceability of qualified information, that if anything, you've got a bit of a head up there on, you throw that at the wall and see what sticks with a good idea. You're actually getting that information coming back to you and saying, what should I do next? What do I do with this task? And it's like, oh, well, here's 3 options. And I think the most important thing is going to be, understanding what can be automated, understanding how you can communicate effectively with that. And then lastly, making sure that you're acknowledging the risks and preparing for, as much as the advancement of technology is great, you're also preparing for the risk that will generate. If you get a new car, it's still got a lock, it's still got a key, it's still got a compromisable, components. That's no different with any business. I think it's making sure that you understand that just because it's a new, bright, shiny, it's got new features, it's still got, the same functionality. It's still going to have the same problems we had yesterday. It's not coming with necessarily a new inherent risk factor. But as much as it streamlines your ability to be effective in there, it also, makes the risks more effective too. If you've got a bad password yesterday, you're going to have a bad password tomorrow. The in-between bit is your opportunity to change that. Copilot and other AI features and services are not going to stop you making bad decisions. I think what it will allow us to do is, across those 3 areas, understand what we need, how we need to prompt and ask and determine, and then what we need to do to actually resolve that issue or mitigate it in a very, I guess, simple way. You don't now need to be a full-fledged SOC security provider. That's still needed in businesses of that scale, but you can ask those simple questions of what's a risk factor for me today, of a company of my size. Give it that contextualized understanding of your business and sort of ask those sort of silly questions. Really, you're going, well, what's going to stop my business in running tomorrow? Am I the risk to my business? Is this the reason to my business? And almost remanufacture what your expectations are from these sort of IT services.
That's interesting. I'll pause there, see if anyone's got any questions they'd like to put to Andy just off the back of that. Okay, so I think then, yeah, there is this two-sided conversations. There's one, how do we exploit this technology for our own benefit? And I think that's a massive opportunity for everybody. You've given a couple of key examples there, which are look at those repetitive tasks, look at those tasks that require a certain degree of literacy, or you've talked about marketing as an example of that, and we're already seeing examples of people that run a business and don't need to hire marketing execs anymore because they get ChatGPT to write it, people that don't need to do website design because they get it created in DALL-E or in Midjourney or these other tools that are available. And there's, I suppose, perhaps the tip that I would add to that is awareness is always step number one, right? So it's get familiar with the tools that exist and be a little bit curious, because there really is quite a depth of tools out there. I think there's a few that keep coming up. ChatGPT is a really good example of one that keeps coming up in the news. There's a lot of fuss about it. Most people have heard about that if they're interested in AI now. But you can go and try that out. You can go and play with it and see what it does. But there are other tools that will do visual work for you. There are other tools that will do cognitive services within AI as well. And a lot of that stuff's not new, right? So Microsoft have been developing machine learning and cognitive services for the best part of half a decade, if not a decade now. So recognizing images and building tools that can look at a scene and identify a situation and then act with various triggers off the back end of that, tools that can listen to conversation, tools that can read, tools that can write. So there's lots of these cognitive tools available. So I think I'm an L&D guy, so my background is slightly biased, but I would say step one for me is go and see what's out there, because there's an awful lot and it's actually quite exciting. And Microsoft have put together fairly rigorous learning paths as well. If you like what you see and are actually interested to learn a bit more, there's the AI 900, which is a fundamentals program where you can get familiar with what AI offers and how it works, and you can actually start to build some of those tools yourself as a part of that free learning process as well, which is quite a fascinating aspect. Coming back to the other side of the slightly darker side though, Andy, which is the threat of AI, especially to the SMB community, where I can't speak for everybody, but I know I've spoken to countless partners who've had frustrations with seemingly obvious advice like turn on MFA and enable single sign-on just not being that easy to get over the line with customers for a whole variety of reasons, right? It's not just ignorance, it's legacy applications, it's processes and God knows what that get in the way of us being able to sometimes follow best practice. And I wonder if you've got thoughts around what some of those initial concerns might be based on. What do you think people need to be aware of, and what do you think are going to be the most effective ways to counteract that for our partners?
Yeah, definitely. I think taking it at face value, you're going to go onto ChatGPT or use some of these Copilot services, and you're going to be a bit overwhelmed, a bit sort of starstruck that you don't understand the limitations of it. The capabilities are sort of all in your hands. And that obviously, the comparable risk factor is that's the same for an attacker. I think one thing to be extremely mindful of is, this isn't just gonna land tomorrow and be a problem the day after. If there's already, bad actors or threats there that are using, cognitive services things, these things are existing in the world today. I think the acceleration that things like the AI services that are about to sort of come out are, if anything, only going to accelerate that further, but give you the opportunity to also accelerate your ability to prepare, your ability to mitigate, before that sort of attempt. And I think, if anything, qualify those risks in a much more simpler way. If you even just going through some of the fundamental security practices, especially alongside the AI fundamentals, you sort of have that conscious prompt of saying, if you get an email from an unrecognizable address or something you've not received one for before, those qualifications are almost like, well, what should I do with that? Should I be opening that email? Should I open that link? Should I open that attachment? Simple things that, within your sort of business assessment, are they things that you truly have a process and a structure and a flow to mitigate against? And I think, if anything, it's going to help really allow businesses to be more aware and more wary of those threats that are most prominent for them. A small business, you could easily be overwhelmed by a flood of emails from a load of potential customers, potential clients. You're going to go, this is amazing, I'm going to try and respond to every single one. and then instantly your risk factor is removed because you've stopped looking at who the emails are from, what their email addresses are. You're thinking, get my responses out to everyone, do the work, put the hard graft in. When that qualification, taking it slow, going through that process, applying that almost that secure mindset, it's gonna essentially be ahead of yourself. You're going to be thinking tomorrow, well, out of those 500 emails, which one of them is the one that I've actually just clicked on the wrong link and now something's got access to my environment? Am I the risk factor, the penetration vector that's allowed my business to be impacted? I think it's just being consciously simple with it. Look at those simple factors of what could be a risk to your business. MFA being an absolutely prominent, a huge one. Updates to your laptops, your servers, things like that are just so easy and almost too easy to forget about as well. I'd be assessing them proactively and sort of saying, well, is that worth the risk? Is it worth me responding that 10 seconds quicker, me logging onto my laptop 5 seconds quicker than not having that security in place? You always get those, I guess, things that exist every day. Someone leaving the laptop on a train. 5 years ago, that was a huge no-go. We need to get that off the network. We need to get it disconnected from all our accounts as fast as possible. Now, that's even faster, and with things like Sentinel and that sort of discovery, we can see and prepare for it being logged into from a different location that we're not expecting, your account being logged into from a different type of device, things like conditional access policies that are already there, already functional, already exist within a looking at those sort of processes and risk factors and assessing them back to yourselves, ideally, before anything goes wrong. And I think all those things are there, and especially with Copilot coming out, I think there's a lot more responsibility on Microsoft and obviously our partners to make sure that you're prepared with tools, resources, guidance. How do you become ready for something that no one's effectively ready for right now, because we've not used it, we've not seen it. It's all very new to us. It's a whole new world. But they are going to be essentially a reformatted version of the existing advice that's already there, already sort of available. It's now just going to be tailored to, if you're going to be using Copilot for this reason, here's the things you need to get sort of in line beforehand. And that readiness is, I guess, how we're going to word it and market it. But yeah, the concerns of tomorrow, the same concerns that we had yesterday is probably my really good tagline onto that.
Yeah, so it's worth reminding everybody that there are still steps that we can take today that will mitigate a lot of these threats. But to touch on a point that you made in there, I think the thing that really stands out to me is that human education piece, which is, I think there is an assumption that it's easy to spot a malicious email because it's it's got bad grammar and it's poorly worded and all of that. Well, that's just not the case anymore, is it? Literally anyone in the world now has the tools to be able to create a really well crafted email. They can copy paste in your LinkedIn profile, have it tailored towards you. It's a little bit scary just how good those tools are going to be. So some of those behaviors that we thought were useful in the past, like checking the address that an email's come from, things like that,
Hi, Greg.
They're going to get much more important as we go forward.
Yeah. 100%.
There we go. I assume Greg does not want to join the conversation just yet. So I do want to throw this out to the participants on the call. Is there any questions that anyone has on the topic of AI, or indeed on anything else we've spoken about today? I'd be interested to hear your concerns or things that you'd like to see coming forward, as well as we start to introduce more awareness about AI and how you can engage with it from an enablement perspective, certainly, but also anything else that you think is relevant. Any questions from anybody at all? Give you a moment or two. Andrew, over to you, sir.
Hello, hi James. Sorry, I was just taking myself off mute there after I'd accidentally put myself off mute earlier on. And I'm sorry, I'm sort of catching this a little bit late because I was in a client meeting for 15 minutes before I joined.
No problem.
But it's really interesting, and it's something on the topic of AI. It's something Jake and I at Maple have been working on with clients in the last few weeks. Is it'd be really good to see, and sorry if you've covered this already, how we can use some of the AI tools to ensure we're automatically putting in best build and best practices into our Office 365 environments and our Azure environments. So not only the best build and the best design, but also applying the best licenses for the use case. So we've got a real head start on the design and the build straight away, and we can hopefully automate a lot of that.
There's a couple of points there, so I can share my experience on a couple of those, because I think, like you, the second tools like ChatGPT and things like that became available, I was kind of thinking myself, is this going to make life easier when it comes to figuring out what license I should be able to get for Office 365 or things like that? And I've conducted what I would describe as a significant amount of testing in this area. The challenge we've got is that although natural language models like that are really good, and I actually think they will be the answer to that question over the course of the next, who can say, it's probably a few years away still, to be fair. Right now, the topics that they relate to are just so challenging in the way that they're worded and the text that are available and the documentation that's available, that it gets confused and it makes mistakes. Example of which I was asking about Teams calling licensing in an AI model the other week, and it was, the instruction was, I need to be able to get updates on this dashboard in periods of no more than 15 seconds. And the way it interpreted the instructions that were in the documentation, where it says you can get this up to 15 seconds, it thought that was kind of it was okay. So it had basically misinterpreted the language in the document, and where I wanted it sort of above that, it was kind of saying, well, it's up to, so one is, whatever, but actually up to can kind of mean a minute to 15 seconds. Up to is faster if it's 15 seconds, right? So I'm not even particularly explaining that well, so I understand why the model got it wrong, but it had misinterpreted a very subtle tweak of the English language and got the whole premise of the licensing foundation wrong. So I had to go back through and identify where that bug had come from, because I knew what I was expecting. I just wanted to test it, but it turned out it was this really subtle thing. So for things like that, I think we're not in any danger of certainly with myself and Christina, who get all the licensing questions here at INSEE, I don't think our jobs are in any danger at the moment. However, I am very much looking forward to being able to put that question into a co-pilot model somewhere and it spit out the correct answer. And I don't think it's that far away. When you talk about best practice and other things like that, I think that's actually a really interesting area, because it depends on where your start point is. And I would say it's probably the same kind of argument, in that if you're actually quite an advanced Azure reseller and you've been doing lots of models and you've got a fairly well-defined vision of what best practice is, those models aren't going to offer you an awful lot that you don't already know. But if you're looking to onboard something completely new to you, let's say you want to start looking at dynamics or things like that, then the value that those tools offer in terms of helping you to determine what's the structure that I should be looking at in terms of how I approach this challenge. Tell me what I should be looking at first, and it will do that. And it, in my experience, will give you very good advice in terms of, first off, read this, understand this, define this model, figure out what your introduction is going to look like, put a product together. Here's a go-to-market strategy. We recommend doing, and it will give you best practice. And you can ask these language tools to reference certain things as well. So you can say, please restrict your answers to what's defined by Harvard Business Review or by Oxford's, model or whatever it may be. You can reference a particular set of texts or instructions to narrow down its responses to you. So some really quite interesting ways that you can use those tools in that respect to say, help me figure out how I do X, how I do Y, how I do Z. It's not going to be the magic bullet that we hope it will be today, because there is that chance of error. And I think the chance of error gets greater the more expert the questions that you're asking the tools to provide answers to. And that's probably true right the way across the board. But that creates a huge opportunity for areas where we're not expert at all. And we're just trying to get our head around what's the best way to learn AI, or what's the best way to learn Azure? What can I do to improve my knowledge? And it will reference models that you can follow, step-by-step guides that will help you to get your head around it, things like that. And I think what that enables you to do is then come and speak to INSEE or Microsoft and get the bells and whistles added onto that response so that we can help you even more so to get there quicker. That was quite a big response.
Thanks,
I hope it was clear.
It's really good. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And just to quickly add on to that for some context, Andrew, I think one thing that's going to be vital in not only the understanding and the education of chatbots and AI services going forward is becoming more familiar with prompts and turns and how you structure the information you're looking for. Realistically, Copilot especially, it has no context. It does not understand you, your job, what you're looking for, the client information that you're trying to contextualize that answer for. You're getting good, and this is sort of going to be, as we saw with I guess expansions into data and sort of the boom of data scientists becoming more sort of commercial across partners. We're going to see the same sort of thing with prompt specialists, someone who can contextualize it and make sense of what the ask is and what you truly want the Copilot or ChatGPT to be able to give you back. There's always that caveat of these are not, this is not gospel. This is not the one answer, the one and true reflection. Use this as a qualification method. Any outputs you get, still do your validation, make sure it's still right. But I've seen some really good use cases for prompts and qualification. Give me the top 3 licenses for this challenge, for this solution, and compare these 3 factors for me. Put it in a table, give it no more than 500 words, and give it something digestible. And I think that's almost the context that we can then apply to things like Copilot and say, give it me in a way that I can not only learn, I can understand, and I can actually, pass on to someone else that's not going to be, it's confusing to me. You've given me an even more confusing answer. Now we're both confused and I'm going to go and confuse someone else. It's almost, I don't know. Give me the information so I do understand. Right, make that a bit simpler. Make that relevant for this topic. Here's some client information. I've got a customer who works in healthcare. Why is that license the best license for them? Oh, well, actually, it's not. That's best for manufacturing. Oh, right, okay. Tell me how you've compared that. What sources have you got that from? Give me the references. Oh, well, we got this one from Forbes. We got this from an NHS study that was done in 2019. It starts to bring together you, if anything, that exploration of why it's giving you the information it's giving you. And from that, you can then deduct the best answer from the client. Use Copilot to then, word that answer, that response to that email. I think that's the part that I mentioned before is how can you, if anything, accelerate the bits in between for you? You learn a new technology, you go, well, I need the time. I need to go and study for a night. I need to go and do a load of research. That sort of prompt structuring will allow you to accelerate your learning. It's almost like having that counterpart, and that's, I guess, there's been many names for Copilot thrown around, and I think Copilot was probably the perfect name to finalize on because it's an assistant, it's someone for you to talk to, and it doesn't know any more than you. It just has access to information that you do. It can just search it faster. It can give it you in a way that you can almost hear it better. And if you don't understand it, you can tell it, I don't understand what you're saying. Reword that for me. Give it, you see a lot of them now where it's like, tell me this information if I was 5. Well, nuclear power starts here, and you suddenly now learn the technology that you've never heard of before or don't understand, and it's not part of your remit, but it's explaining to you like you're 5 years old, and suddenly you can now go and tell another adult as if they're 5 and say, look, this is actually a really simple thing that I know nothing about, but I understand what it is now. So I think definitely looking at those prompt mechanisms, and there's going to be a lot of material, a lot of training. The AI fundamentals is obviously enhanced because of things like that, but understanding how to word things, how to ask, what are you actually trying to seek? It's not going to be, as James said, that magic bullet. That's not the design. The design is that it helps you accelerate you from 0 to 80, 0 to 75 to get to 100. That's that human element of you then qualifying what you've been given. No different than if you asked a question, James gave you one answer, I gave you another. You would take both information away, deduct from your own analysis, and go, right, James is right, I'm going to move forward with that answer. That's your sort of human element there being applied. That's no different than working with Copilot or working with any AI services. It's you still need to go away and apply that human element as to what you then want to see as the truth or as what's the most right answer to move forward with. and then that circle repeats then. So it's definitely going to be an exploration more than anything. Don't expect the golden bullet, but definitely see that as a mechanism for you to streamline and accelerate your path to learning.
I think what I've seen with a lot of partners I've spoken to recently about AI and the conversations I've had, that a few of them have been quite intimidated, is the wrong word, but they see AI as coming into Azure. They see Copilot in modern work, and that's where they see it sitting within modern work, and it's going to be their personal assistant to help them sort stuff out in that way. And then they look at the AI that's coming into Azure, and to them it's this big kind of, you should be selling AI to your customers, where I think is a lot of what people have noticed, and I'm kind of trying to be communicated to partners, actually a large chunk of where the AI is going to sit within the SMB market is the tools for the partners as well to actually be pushing forward your business. And it's that, it is that marketing piece, it is that the bits that will sit outside of Azure. But when you look at what we looked at earlier within cost management, cost management is a wonderful tool to utilize it to get the information you need out of it when you're doing cost optimization work and analysis of previous months. It can be very time consuming, it can be very clunky, and it can take a lot of analysis from 6 different spreadsheets to try and work out exactly where you should be looking. Once AI has come into that, and into things like Azure Advisor and things like Azure Microsoft Defender for Cloud and things like that. Once these are fully embedded and up and running, that's going to create a huge tool for partners to not necessarily sell AI, but to utilize it to make their services better, to make their services stronger, to make them more effective, and from a security perspective, a usability perspective, and from a cost perspective. That's where I really see the big advantage for the SMB market with partners to begin with, at least. And that's where I think we should be looking at trying to upskill ourselves first and foremost. Andy, James, tell me if I'm completely wrong on that, but that's where I see it going to start with AI in Azure.
I agree totally. I think the packaged tools are where everybody should be starting. Don't start trying to build your own application in AI before you've just gone and had a play with something somebody's already built who knows what they were trying to do. There are so many of those tools out there that can add value. I think there is that danger that people will put too much faith in AI solutions, and Andy was quite keen to sort of highlight that, and I agree that you've got to sanity check everything you do in AI. It's not smart enough at the minute to really take the wheel. However, depending on where you are today, there's a lot of scope for how it can definitely move you forward a long way before you start hitting concerns about, is this really accurate enough? There's a lot of questions it can answer very reliably, and a lot of mileage you can get out of the tools that already exist. That I think everybody should be playing with AI, right, and getting their head around what it can do, and understanding the positives and the negatives of that, so that they can kind of weigh in on the discussion, but also so they can recognize that opportunity when it comes along. And I would equate this as one of the most significant technological advances that we've seen in a long time, to say the least. And it is absolutely a huge opportunity for partners to be at the beginning of that revolution, not waiting too long. The opportunities are enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I guess one of the biggest challenges that I see in my role at Microsoft is around partners that are looking to develop and build new solutions. One of the hardest things is really where do you begin your investment? How do you take that leap of faith into an area that requires investment, requires time and resource, without the guarantee that it's going to have a return on that investment, or it's going to be a growth area for your business? I think it's definitely, if you look at it a bit more structured, where would something like AI services or Copilot sort of fall in that line for yourselves? I think for larger MSPs, they're seeing it as a way for them to sort of, if a customer looks at VMs, for example, Copilot's going to be above that and be able to answer all the simple questions, the easy ones, the should I use this VM SKU or this VM SKU based on this sort of resource utilization, nice bit of qualification. It's simple, sort of based on X, is it Y, is it Z? Brilliant. That saved us 3 hours of a ticket, of a case investigation. We're getting that sort of information qualified and accelerated, which is then actually allowing those at sort of MSPs to then step out of that sort of first line, second line I guess, sort of commitment and say, well, we can have that structure. We're now going to be able to resolve tickets quicker. And now we can actually show our strengths as a specialized security partner or modern work partner. And they're sort of taking that really as a directive to stand out from what AI services like Copilot are offering, because then they're going, well, Copilot doesn't have the experience that we have. It's not worked with 1,000 clients. It's not built up this repertoire of knowledge and resource in-house for us to showcase. And it's how you want to use that. And I guess on the alternative side is, how do you build out a new solution area? If you've never worked with a certain technology before, you're starting from minus. You've got to learn it, you've got to understand it, then you've got to speak to clients about it to hopefully convince them that you know what you're talking about, to advise and guide them on their journeys. This, if anything, will help bridge the gap between especially smaller businesses that are trying to learn new things or expand into different solution areas. That time to learn gap is going to be reduced to almost zero, because if you don't know something, like obviously we just spoke with Andrew about, you can direct that question. Where do I start if I want to learn, security services? If I want to hire a security analyst, what things do I want them to know? What things do I need to know if I'm the hiring manager of that person? If I'm a business that needs to be compliant for something, what people do I need to have there to reaffirm that that's maintained and I'm going to pass the audit next time? Those sort of prompts and questions and queries are going to be the thing that allows you to really catch up partners and other businesses that have been doing it for, like obviously James said at the start, 5, 10, 15 years, and they've got all the experience and all of the knowledge. Well, now you've got all the knowledge too, because if anything, that the same sort of knowledge that they've built up over time is fed back through the community, like partners like Inti and like Microsoft. We always try and keep that very simplistic and very consistent. You're actually going to be in that unique position of learning a lot quicker than anyone ever has in our human existence ever before. We are accelerating that opportunity to learn much more than if you've been doing it for 20, 30 years and now you need to keep up for the next year. It's going to be much harder because you've got a slow moving rock behind you. You're bringing a whole enterprise business with you. You've got to wait for 600 people to learn that thing too. If you're a small 5-10 person MSP, you're sort of going to be able to do that much quicker than the big guys. And I think that gives you the unique position of like, we can be ready quicker. What we lack in experience in a new area, we're actually gaining traction because look, we've identified this is something we want to do. We've identified this is something you want to do. We're ready. Let's go. And I think that's maybe, subtly some of the MSPs I speak to, they're watching their backs. They're going for things like partner global stages, and they're going, well, this little sort of IT support company that's down the road from us, that's never been a competition, is actually just swiping deals from us now because we can't provide, the sort of the level playing field now exists. We can't provide that leverage of we've always done it like this, because now everyone knows the same thing, and to that degree, that's going to be a really passionate way that SMBs can challenge the market, going forward into the new FY. And this is coming from someone who works with partners like Inti, and I'm saying, watch your back.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we're coming up to time soon. So I wanted to give a couple of minutes if we had any questions around the AI discussion or any other areas we've covered today from anybody on the call. Silence is golden. Excellent. As always, you've got your account managers at Inti. You've got contact with myself if you need anything at all, anything we've covered today or anything we haven't covered today, just get in touch. We're always here to help. So that I will leave you with. The other thing is we have a quarterly update call for our modern workplace practice as well tomorrow at, my colleagues have sent me the time of it and I've already forgotten what they wrote, 10 a.m. tomorrow.
10 a.m.
So if you are interested in that, please do register for it. But yeah, we'll be sending out the slides and everything from this call today. So expect those through in the next 24 hours or so. Yeah, anything else, please do let us know. And thanks for joining us, Andy, James, and everyone else. We'll let Jonathan in just in time for us to say thank you very much and speak to you all soon.